So we are looking at the diary entry from December 13 and also chapter 8 in this video. So just some things to consider as you are listening. How are characters being developed? So what is happening to the characters? Are some characters being given more time in the text? Are we starting to see certain personality characteristics evolve? Are we starting to like some characters more and dislike some other characters more? What is Stone doing to make us think like that? So, for example, Jared in the last chapter was really given a work through in terms of his own preconceived prejudices and his bias and the biases that he has towards other individuals, and also just the things that make him, I guess, a more unlikable character and more of the antagonist of the text. So, thinking about that, what is happening to the characters in terms of their personal lives, in terms of the developments with other characters, the relationships that they are forming with other characters, and also considering how Stone develops the themes and ideas. So we know that themes are enduring ideas that occur throughout the text. So we have a number of themes that we've previously discussed, such as injustice, racial inequality, and obviously also family, trauma, and that kind of thing. So how are they being developed? What types of techniques or literary devices is Stone using to let the audience know about that? So without further ado, I'm going to start by reading the December 13 diary entry. Dear Martin, can you explain why everywhere I turn, I run into people who want to try and keep me down? Tonight I went home because I decided to share the Yale news with Mama in person, and while she was ecstatic, what I faced when I left the house brought me back as low as the affirmative action is bullshit discussion from class today. Basically, when I rounded the corner to head to my bus stop, Trey and a bunch of the black jihad dudes, the white guy included, were standing there shooting the shit, as my granddaddy used to say. When Trey asked me what the fuck I was so happy about, I actually told them about Yale. Yeah, I was tripping, Martin. Trey's response? You'll be back, smart guy. Once you see them white folks don't want your black ass at the table, they're not down with you being their equal, dog. We see you soon, he grinned. I think if the socio-evo discussion had taken place on a different day, I could have ignored Trey. I mean, what the heck does he know? I'm not even sure he's still in school. And the only white person he interacts with was standing there with his blonde hair and cornrows and a gold grill that spelled out Brad across his teeth. Jared and Trey taken together, though, the whole return trip to campus, their words played catch with my confidence. Jared's test score thing really bugged me. All this talk about how equal things are, yet he assumed I didn't do as well as he did, and nobody can tell me he didn't make that assumption because he's white and I'm Black Martin. And then Trey. Why does this guy insist on trying to keep me down? On the real, he's just as bad as Jared. It's like I'm trying to climb a mountain, but I've got one fool trying to shove me down so I won't be on his level, and another fool tugging at my leg, trying to pull me to the ground he refuses to leave. Jared and Trey are only two people, but after today, I know that when I head to Yale next fall, because I am going there, I'm going to be paranoid about people looking at me and wondering if I'm qualified to be there. How do I work against this, Martin? Getting real with you, I feel a little defeated. Knowing there are people who don't want me to succeed is depressing, especially coming from two directions. I'm working hard to choose the moral high road like you would, but it'll take more than that, won't it? Where'd you get the courage to keep climbing in the face of stuff like this? Because I know you got it from both sides. I'm going to try and sleep now. Get my head reset on my shoulders. Feel free to pop up in my dreams or something. Tell me what to do, like Babe Ruth did to Benny in The Sandlot. I love that movie, Martin. Justice. P.S. Totally unrelated, but you know anything about love triangles? I feel like a jerk because there SJ was cheering you forward while Mello, as usual, only thinking of herself, wanted to hold me back. And what did I do? Capitulated to the booty. And okay, the fear of what my mama will say if I fail to keep SJ at the furthest end of the friend zone. I've got absolutely nothing on this one. How did I even end up in this position? I'm a decent looking dude, but two gorgeous girls wanting me? The J-Mac? I can't even handle it, Martin. Okay, so that's a really short and sweet diary entry. So you can fill in your summary. Basically, as always, it is Justice writing his thoughts down to Martin as he tries to process the events that are occurring. There's a couple of different key quotes that I would consider, particularly ones like this, and I think this is just a nice short and sweet one. How do I work against this, Martin? And the question of what is this? Okay, so I think that in my mind, this is the systematic oppression and systemic racism that continues in this cycle that we're seeing here, that it's going around in cycles. And obviously, he makes some comparisons between the way that the Black Jihad members are treating him and making assumptions about him and the same way that Jared does. And he's likening them and their prejudices. So, in terms of character developments, we do have obviously in the diary entries a lot of development from Juz and how he is processing and working through his own thoughts surrounding the prejudice, discrimination, racism, and inequality, not only that he is experiencing, but that he's seeing happening in others. So again, we've got this idea of inequality, racism, and prejudice, and we're looking at it in a systemic level. So systemic racism is entrenched. It is a system. It's something that has been occurring for a really long time, and it's basically really hard to remove in society. Jared is a great example of somebody who has underlying bias and doesn't recognise that he is part of a system of racism that has been allowed to be perpetuated, so is allowed to develop and simmer and fester over time. In terms of unfamiliar vocabulary, there might be some more, but the main one that stuck out to me was actually toward the end, which was capitulated. Hang on, sorry, I'm typing with one hand. Capitulated. I forgot the I. Sorry. So capitulated, if we look at our synonyms, it means surrendered, submitted, yielded, relented, ceded, or succumbed. So basically he's saying that he was drawn in by Nello's booty, per se. But obviously the fact that he chooses to use language like this is really interesting. Also, just a note that obviously I'm reading this, but when he does write diary entries, Juz chooses to actually write them incorrectly. So he uses asterisks and things to denote the swear words. I just read them for effect in this instance. Okay, so I'm going to now move on to the chapter 8. Chapter 8. Before Justice's butt has a chance to sink into the leather of the Rivers' basement couch, Manny's already talking crazy. So how long you plan to hold out on your boy? He doesn't turn away from the movie he's watching on mute while an old Deuce Diggs track thumps through the speakers. I won't even pretend to know what you're talking about, Juz replies. Yo, what album is this? I don't think I've heard this cut before. Mixtape from a few years ago. Don't change the subject. Juz looks at Manny. What subject? Dog, who just dropped you off, Manny says. SJ, which you know from the I'll have SJ drop me off text message you responded to 15 minutes ago. Exactly. Exactly what? You and SJ. What about me and SJ? Manny stares at Juz like he just said 2 + 2 is 5. What, Manny? Manny shakes his head. I thought we were boys, Juz. Whatever, turn the TV up. Justice tucks his hands behind his head. Just tell me how long. How long what, fool? How long have you been hooking up with SJ, man? Why are you over here playing dumb? Juz rolls his eyes. I'm not hooking up with SJ, Manny. Everybody knows, man. Everybody knows what? That you're over at her house every damn day. You know, Jessa Northup is her neighbour. She told us. Says SJ's parents are obsessed with you. They call you Juzzmaster and shit. Juz drags his hands down his face. He knew Jessa was nosy, but damn. First of all, you sound like a damn girl right now with all this gossiping shit. Second, I'm not over there every day. Third, when I am there, it's for debate stuff. And fourth, Mr. and Mrs. F liking me is irrelevant. Manny rolls his eyes. So all you go over there for is debate? Yes, Manny. The state tournament is in 3.5 weeks. Oh, okay, and that's all you ever talk about? Justice brow furrows. I mean, we occasionally talk about other stuff, but see, it's something going on between y'all, man. I can see that shit all over you. Justice shakes his head and settles down to the couch. I'm not talking about this anymore. You gonna turn the movie up or what? Juz, I'm your best friend. Dog, Justice sits up, turns to look Manny in the eye. I'm only going to say this once, so listen closely, alright? There is nothing going on between me and SJ. Manny stares right back. Juz, I know you like her, man, and she obviously likes you. It doesn't matter. Justice sinks back into leather. It does, though. No, it doesn't. You trippin', man. SJ's a gorgeous girl, and she's perfect for you. Drop it. Come on, Juz. I said it doesn't matter, Manny. Why not? Justice takes a deep breath. Manny, my mama would blow every gasket in a 50-mile radius. Huh? SJ is white. Manny draws back, puts his hand over his heart and mock us. What? You're kidding me. Shut up, fool. Whatever. Manny waves him off. She's not white. She's Jewish. It's different. Judd sighs. They were slaves too, dog, and then the Holocaust. Even now. I know what you mean. Won't matter to my mama, though. SJ's skin is white. Manny doesn't respond. My mum is not down with that. Still no response. Justice exhales. No offense, Giles, but that might be the dumbest thing I've ever heard, Manny finally says. Giles shrugs. Well, it is what it is, and since pissing my mama off ain't real high on my to-do list, SJ and I are strictly friends. Besides, me and Mel are talking again. Manny smacked his forehead. Oh, I was wrong before, he said. That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Shut up, man. Giles, if Mello and SJ are diverging paths on the road of life, you're headed for a dead end, my friend. Where do you get this shit, Manny? I'm just saying. Mama aside, you're making the wrong decision. Giles snorts. No offense, but I refuse to take relationship advice from a dude who's never been in one. Whoa, now! Just because I don't want a serious girlfriend at the moment doesn't mean I don't know what it takes to maintain a relationship. Ah, here we go. I'm serious, Giles. You think I've learned nothing from watching my parents over the last 17 and a half years? Or whatever, man. Can we please drop this? They fall into a weighty silence, both staring at the massive television screen, but neither actually watching the movie. Out of nowhere, Manny says, you know what? I've got the opposite problem, right? What? I'm going to tell you something, but don't laugh at me, all right? I'm trusting you with a deep, dark secret. Giles lifts an eyebrow. Manny inhales, filling his cheeks with air before blowing it out. I'm scared of black girls, man. Huh? Black girls? I've never really encountered a non-family one. Okay. There are none in our grade. The only ones I know are my cousins, and they're a lot. A lot? Like real attitudey and kind of ghetto. Justice doesn't know what to say. It's not like he has any experience in this area either. Mello's half black, but she's definitely not the type of girl Manny's talking about. Manny goes on. I know there's a stereotype or whatever, but I've literally never experienced anything else. My folks are all excited about me going to Morehouse next year, but I'm nervous as hell. How come? You're my only black friend, dog. How am I supposed to get this all-white world to an all-black one overnight? Giles doesn't respond. Anyway, my bad for just laying all that on you. Giles shrugs. It's cool. I should have applied to Princeton or something. Would have been more familiar. Manny sighs. Giles shakes Manny's shoulder. You'll be fine, man. I'm sure there'll be plenty of dudes you'll vibe with at Morehouse, just like you vibe with me. It's Spelman I'm really worried about. You know, it's right next door. Black girls everywhere. Giles laughs. And you know what? I love women, man, but what if I get there and none of them are feeling me? I wish I knew what to tell you, Manny. All I can say is they're not all alike, just like we aren't. Manny nods. Touche, my dog. They lapse into silence again. Then, Giles, I'm going to say this last thing, and then I'll get out of your business. Oh boy, here we go. I get wanting to please your mum. The only reason I'm even going to Morehouse is because it's been my Spellhouse alumni parents' dream for me since they found out I was a boy. But passing up on a good thing because your mum wouldn't approve? I don't know about that, man. Especially when it comes to something as stupid as race. Justice snorts. You're still doing that MLK thing, right? Or what would he do? I wouldn't know considering Ms. Coretta was black. Shut up, you know what I mean. If you're doing this be like Martin thing, do it for real. Refusing to date a girl because she's white is probably not the kingly way, bruh. Justice glares at Manny. I knew I shouldn't have told your punk ass anything. Manny smirks and grabs the TV remote from the ottoman, and then he slouches down into the couch and unmutes the movie. Okay, so again, short summary. Mainly what we're seeing here is the development of the relationship of Manny and Justice, and both of them obviously talking about some of the things that they are finding difficult and that they are struggling with when it comes to handling their race in a society or when they've been in a school with predominantly white people. It was mentioned earlier in the text that there was only 8 African or black students in the entire school. So it's a really marginalized community there, and obviously doesn't line up with what they're sort of experiencing and what they're likely to experience. I actually don't have full context, but my understanding is that Morehouse, the college that Manny has got into, is a predominantly African American college, or maybe exclusively. I will look into that for you all. So there was a quote actually that I saw and thought that it was good, and it was around what Manny was saying to Juz about not letting his mum's prejudice get in the way. What does he say? Oh, something as stupid as race. That's right. Especially when it comes to something as stupid as race. And I think that that's an interesting one because obviously we are developing this understanding of the characters, their own understanding with race, how other people perceive race. And obviously Stone is trying to dispel some of the facts, I guess some of the stuff that's been going on. But we're also seeing that these prejudices and the stereotyping and the, I guess, systemic racism. stereotype, the systemic racism, um, the prejudice experiencing on both sides. So obviously we're seeing that there is some prejudice on behalf of Manny when he talks about the cousins in his lives and how he sees them as being a little bit ghetto. And I think that's interesting too because in some ways his experience, Manny's experience, has been more familiar, I guess, with white people. He has had less exposure to, I guess, the African American communities and the black communities where his family originally has come from. Because, in a way, he's sort of a second generation of people going to college. His family, his parents were first. You can see, obviously, earlier in the text with his cousin that he's got connections to some of the other sort of, I guess, communities in Atlanta where it's set, which is in Georgia, which is in one of the southern states in America. So lots of stuff to unpack. Didn't think there was that much unfamiliar vocabulary. If you notice anything, feel free to add it in. I'll just say it's different, I guess, types of people, really, because that's what it comes down to. It's the same way that Jazz's mum, she obviously is very protective of her heritage, very protective of her culture, and of course, given the ongoing racism, prejudice, discrimination experienced by Black Americans and obviously people of colour around the world, that is totally justifiable. And obviously, why Stone is writing about this. I have already mentioned this, but I talk from a place of privilege, and I acknowledge the fact that I don't have any first-hand experience with racism or prejudice due to the fact that I am Caucasian or white, and so I don't speak about this with any level of authority. So I'm just speaking from my own understanding and from what I've read. Once again, if you were to speak to someone, and I think it would be interesting if, for example, one of my friends is African Australian, her take on some of these issues would be very different to my own, and it's worth considering that. And we also talked about, when we were looking at The Help, the white saviorism that exists in that film as well. Character development wise, obviously Manny and Jazz's friendship continues to be a focal point, and focal point is just as it sounds, it's a focus of the text, and I think that is where we will leave this chapter.